Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Florida Sound Archive podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Kaiser. And for today's episode, I have on with me a very special guest. I'm very pleased to welcome to the podcast Mike Bales. He has been in some really amazing bands. He still is playing music to this day. Rocket 88, you may have heard of them from Orlando. Also, Lovegods In Leisure Suits. And there's even more that we'll get to. I want to welcome in Mike Bales to the podcast. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Glad to have you here. I know we were chatting before we started recording about your amazing toaster collection behind you. And it's not often that you see in someone's background a collection of vintage toasters. So can you just tell us a little about the toaster collection that you have?
Yeah, well, it started as a lark, but it kind of snowballed into this whole other thing. Um, when I went to college, my parents gave me a toaster to take with me. And so I was doing some photo work in college, and I did several photos with the toaster in like unusual places. And so during critiques in art class, and people would look at the photos and like, oh, that's the guy with the toaster. He's the toaster guy. So around campus, I was like, hey, that's the toaster guy. Hey, he's the toaster guy. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna just go ahead and go with this. So I would go to antique stores and pick up a toaster every now and then, or garage sale. But yeah, it kind of they're all vintage from like 20s through 50s, but and I think it was 1990, the Orlando Sentinel did a feature on people who had strange collections. So I told them about my toaster collection, and they sent a photographer over to my house and they took photos. And then from that point on, it just went, people were calling me and
Wow.
mailing me, and they were sending me toasters, but each toaster had a story, like I won this toaster at a drive-in in 1958. So yeah, so anyway,
That's very
I,
cool.
I stopped collecting for a while because I ran out of room. I
Okay.
41 toasters, but yeah, it's a nice, interesting conversation piece.
It is. Instant conversation starter, Mike.
Right.
So I love it. So thank you for sharing a little about your collection there, and it's just so wonderful to have you on.
Thank you.
You
It's
know,
good to be here. Thanks.
you have done so much for the Central Florida music scene. You've been around for so long and have so much to share, I imagine, just based on the journey that you've taken over the years. How many years would you say it's been since you first got into music?
It's been 38 years since 1987. Yeah, that's a wow, that's a long
It
time.
is a long time. It is a really long time. And the fact that you're still out there and you're still doing it, I feel like is a testament to just the staying power that you've had in the scene. And
Yeah,
so,
I feel blessed to be still able to do it. It's just it's such a great thing. I really feel very fortunate to still be able to play. Just played a show last month. So
yeah,
yeah, it's uh it's a great thing. It keeps me young.
right. That's important, right? The older we get, the younger we can feel is
Exactly.
that's the way you want it
Yes,
to be.
for
So,
sure.
well, let's take a trip down
Okay.
memory lane. We're going to go back to the early beginning. I know you mentioned 87 was when you first really started with the music side of things. Let's go back a little further than that and talk about your upbringing. Where'd you grow up?
I'm originally from Virginia. I grew up in Marion, Virginia, which is a small town in Southwest Virginia, in the mountains of Southwest Virginia. Um, it's between Bristol and Roanoke. Um, it's population of 6,000 people. So it's kind of like growing up in Mayberry.
Right.
It was
Small town.
idyllic, small town, great place to grow up. But yeah, I guess A few things that influenced me, like my grandfather played guitar and banjo, and his brothers also played guitar. So when I was growing up, when we would have family cookouts or family reunions, they would always play music, like country, bluegrass music, and I just saw him light up when he was doing it, and it just left a mark, because I just saw the joy in him when he was doing that.
Sure.
And then my mom had a pretty extensive 45 collection of 45s from the 50s and early 60s and Elvis, Chuck Berry and that kind of stuff, and used to listen to those. But yeah, growing up, I really was primarily focused on art because I started drawing when I was 4, and that's just really what I was focused on. And I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm gonna, I
Do you
just
remember your first drawing you ever did?
my well, my parents told me that, I was just sitting there one day and I started drawing the telephone, which was on the counter, and I did like this. They were like, it was so realistic. They're like, I was 4, and they're like, wow, this is not normal. So they started. They were very supportive and they put me into different art lessons and with different teachers and painting instructors and drawing instructors, and yeah, they kind of nurtured that along. But
It
it's
was a
always
wise move because knowing
yeah.
the artwork that we'll get into that you've created over the course of your life has just been amazing to look
Oh,
at. So,
thanks. Thanks. Yeah,
yeah, just
I
really
appreciate it.
amazing. So, how'd you get to Florida?
So, Florida, after graduating from high school, I wanted to pursue my art career. So I went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale um, to study illustration and advertising design. And that's where I met my roommate at the school was Ano Abatel. He was from Vermont, and he had a lot of uh, music that I had read about. Like coming from the small town, there was not a lot of non-mainstream music. But so he had these LPs of Lords of the New Church, the Cramps, the Dead Kennedys, and all this stuff, and it was like I had read about them, but I had never really even heard them. So
Right.
that was the first time that I was like, oh, this stuff is great. It's just so, you know,
He
so much
planted
energy and
he
different.
planted a seed for sure.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So while we were in school, we used to go to concerts. We would go to actually the first concert I went to was in 1983. We went to see the Circle Jerks in Fort Lauderdale. And
You remember where it was?
yeah, it was at actually I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget. It was at oh man, where was it? At the Playpen South in Fort Lauderdale, which
Okay.
normally did it was a nightclub that did it,
Right.
occasionally did cover bands, but yeah. But the most memorable thing about that show was about 4 songs in, someone jumped up on stage and grabbed the set list, and Keith Morris, the singer, was like, he stopped the show and he's like, someone stole our set list. And everyone was like, what? And he's like, that's it. We're not playing anymore if someone doesn't give us our set list back. And people were booing and yelling, and he's like, that's it. We're done. If you don't give it back, we're done. And so I was like, we were like, and he just like walked off, and the band walked off. That was it. I was like, wow, that was wild.
That is.
So it's very memorable. But
Yeah.
crazy
It's
to think
surprising.
about.
I didn't know that there was a connection to South Florida at one point in time. So
Yeah.
how long were you in Fort Lauderdale for?
So I was in Fort Lauderdale from 82 to 84. And in 19, through the late 83 through 84, my friend Ano and I went to Flynn's in Miami Beach. Almost every weekend we were at Flynn's. So we saw so many bands there: Black Flag, Battalion of Saints, um, Agent Orange, a lot of local bands like Sector 4 or Florida bands, Roach Motels, Gay Cowboys and Bonds, a lot, just so many shows there. They Exploited, you know, it was wild because Miami Beach at that time was just there was nothing going on. It was empty.
Right.
There's just really nothing going on. So Flynn's was like the only little place. But yeah, so I saw these bands and I was like, I just love the energy of it and the way it was, I was like do it yourself whole thing of just, this is just very really, I thought it was really creative the way the bands were marketing themselves and just doing all that stuff themselves, posters and flyers, and so that's another thing that kind of got me going, inspired. And so I was in Lauder there till '84, and then when I graduated college, I got a job in DeLand, which I was working as an illustrator. For a defense contractor, which was like, yeah. But I mean, it was a great job, but it was like, wow, I'm doing illustrations for military manuals and stuff.
Right.
I was like,
I mean, someone's got to do it, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, but it was like, ooh, I need a more creative outlet here, So, um, and it was also culture shock being in DeLand after being in Fort Lauderdale because
What was the difference between the two from your experience?
well, I mean, Lauderdale is such a big city, and there were so many shows all the time, and record stores, and then I get to DeLand, and I'm thinking, yeah, Stetson University's here, Daytona Beach is close by, but there's got to be a lot going on. But, I mean, at 9 p.m. in DeLand, that's it. Everything's closed. It's over. It's done.
Right.
It was like, wow. So I started just kind of venturing out. I would go and I found out about Murmur Records in Orlando. So I would drive down there and buy records and stuff. And then I found out about some shows that were happening in Orlando. Jim Faraday was putting on some shows. And so, in 84 through 86, I guess, went to see a bunch of shows. Usually went by myself because I didn't really know anyone up here. So, I shows. I saw Jim on one of your other episodes where he's talking about some
Yeah.
of these shows he did, and I was there for these shows, like Husker Du and TSOL and all
Right.
these shows. Dead Kennedy.
How did you know Jim was the one who was promoting some of these shows?
Just talking to people at Murmur, they would. This is a figurehead or Jim Faraday's doing this show here. You should go check it out. Or there was another guy, Ed Puglisi, who was a singer for Noise for the Needy. He was also doing some shows, and so I would just go by myself and go to see these shows. But eventually, in 1987, I finally was just through talking to people in DeLand. They're like, you got to meet this guy, Tom Harline. He lives here in DeLand and he's like totally into the same music you're into. So it's like, oh, okay. So finally, I got in touch with Tom and so we started talking and we did have a lot in common, musical tastes and, just other, sense of humor. So we started going to shows and we would go to shows in Daytona, we'd go to Tampa, say Cuban Club or the Armory and say, we saw so many shows, Butthole Surfers and JFA and MDC and all these. I was really into the hardcore punk
Right.
kind of scene. And
What was it about the hardcore scene that just connected with you, Mike?
I think it was the energy. I felt like, I was at that time, I was like, I, it was an outlet. I felt like I had, I was, I don't know, I felt like I wasn't really able to get that creative release from my job. And so I wanted to just, I needed some kind of outlet. And that just seemed to, I like the energy and the, originality of some of the stuff. Um, but I will say that the thing that really put it over the top for me was in 1986. I went to California. My college roommate was living in Long Beach. I went to California to visit him. And while I was there on Friday night, we went to see GBH, The Weirdos, MIA, at Fender's Ballroom. And then the following night, we went to see The Cramps with Social Distortion opening. And that was the first time I'd seen The Cramps. And that was like life changing. That was that was it. I mean, from that moment on, I was like, I've got to do this. I got to figure out some way to do something like this because this is just great. They just combined everything that I really wanted to in a band. Like the Lux was a great front man, and the songs were about hot rods and B movies and sex and just a great show. It was just a great show, and they had that sound, and so
Plus the look too, and the art, the
yeah,
posters, the album
absolutely,
covers. Yeah.
yeah, they were great. Yeah, Nick Knox was just so stoic behind the drums, but it was perfect. It was just perfect. But that was crazy because at the end of their set, Lux was totally nude, just completely nude on stage and crawling around on the floor, pouring wine all over him, and it was crazy. It was great. I loved it. Loved it. So to go back to when Tom and I were going to these shows and stuff, I'd always just reference that Cramp show, like this is the greatest thing ever. And so I'm like, we should try to put a band together. Let's try to do something. And he's like, yeah, I guess we could. And he goes, I don't even really play an instrument. I'm like, well, what about the bass? You could play the bass. So yeah, he bought a bass and started learning to play the bass. And we just kept going to shows and thinking like, we would see some really good bands, but some bands are like, oh man, that's just not good. So I think we could at least do that,
Right.
at least it was some. So originally it was a creative outlet just to do something different, and so after a while we put out an ad. There was a music magazine called Jam Magazine. We put out an ad for a guitarist, and that's when we met Kevin Burvey, who was also known as Road Narrows. Um, and he also had the same, like, just kind of quirky sense of humor, but he was very not just into hardcore punk music. He was into blues and rock and funk and other things. So that's what we wanted to do, not just hardcore kind of thing. Um, so we got together after a while. We rehearsed and did some stuff, and that's when we did a little demo tape. We did the Life in the Dacron Hell tape, which was in 1987. That's when that came out.
That artwork on that tape is just eye-catching in my opinion. I loved the imagery on that cover. Did you do that?
Yeah. That's it's a caricature I did of this guy. I got asked a lot, like, where did you come up with that name? That's just ridiculous. And I said, well, yeah, it was like you have to think of the time period because in the 80s, in the late 80s, it was not that far removed from the disco era. And I would go to nightclubs and bars, and I would just see these guys just like such womanizers, so you know, misogynistic. And it just infuriated me. I was like, how do they get away with this? And then this guy, there's one place I was in, there's a guy just, hitting on women left and right. And I was like, and I was with a couple other people and they're like, yeah, that guy's like such a love god. And I'm like, yeah, all he needs is a leisure suit. And I was like, he'd be a love god in a leisure suit. And everyone laughed. And I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. I really might be a good name for a band. So
It's original, that's for sure.
yeah. But yeah, I think that photo is the original lineup for Love Gods. And a little thing that maybe people may not know is that the Dacron on Hell recording was done before we met Rich Tebow, who's the drummer. Um, we hadn't met him yet. So when we did this recording, Kevin's brother Ken played drums on that recording. So
Interesting.
that's a little thing people may not know.
Yeah. Did anyone else in the original lineup do anything else musically at that point, or was this everybody's first venture into being in a band?
Uh, I believe, well, for me and for Tom and for Kevin or Road, I think it was the first venture. Rich, when we met Rich, I think he was playing in a band with Dave Ewing, who's in the Tremolores now. But I don't know that they were playing out. I think maybe they were just jamming. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think we met Rich in 1988, and again, I met them through. We took out an ad in Jam magazine, and that's how we met Rich. And so yeah, I think it was. I guess you could say pretty much this first band for all of us.
Okay.
Hopefully, I'm getting that right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
One
so
song that really stood out to me and still does when you listen to the discography of Love Gods and Leisure Suits
mhm.
is the song Lust for Food because it has this surf vibe to
Yeah,
it, and none of the other songs had that.
yeah.
So, talk about that. And was whose idea was it to include a surf song in there?
That was Road or Kevin. I guess I'll just call him Road. Uh, yeah, he wrote that song and he yeah, he came up with the music and wrote that song, but it was different. It was like most of the stuff that we did was it was really hard to pigeonhole. It was like, what is this? Is this garage rock? Is this punk rock? Is this hardcore? Is this disco? Is this funk? What is going on here? It was kind of all over the place,
Right.
but that's what I liked about it. But I think perhaps other people were like, I don't know. I just can't figure out what these guys are about. So,
And just speaking about the people, where do you remember the first show?
the first show that Love Gods played was in Gainesville with a band called the Pink Lincolns. We played, I think it was called The Bar in Gainesville. And there was a guy who had a fanzine, I think it was called No Idea, I believe was the name of it. But he
Right.
did some shows up there. And and again, first show, we were, or at least I was pretty naive as to far as how everything works. So we went on first and I just thought we would play our whatever the amount of songs that we knew at the time. This is a very beginning. So I don't know, we had 15 songs or something. So like, but we played them in their entirety. And I think the Pink Lincolns were very annoyed because I think they thought we were supposed to do like a 35, 40-minute set and get off, but we just kept playing. And so they were extremely annoyed. So that's the very, very first show was that show. Yeah.
Did you guys ever play with them again after that?
think it was, I think maybe two, three, maybe a couple years later we did a show with them, but yeah, that was they were. they were not real friendly after that. So yeah.
It happens, unfortunately. But interesting though, Mike, you mentioned Gainesville was one of the first shows of Love Gods.
Mhm.
Why wasn't one of the earlier shows, or maybe there were other shows that were earlier on, but why Gainesville over playing somewhere in Central Florida?
Um, I think it just happened that way. We were reaching out to different people. And I think well, I sent the Dacron Hell tape to fanzines like, Maximum Rock and Roll, and it got a favorable review. So I think I think the guy from No Idea saw that in Maximum Rock and Roll. He's like, yeah, yeah, sure. So we were looking for anyone that would take a chance on us because we were completely unknown. And
Right.
but it was only maybe a week or two later that we played in Orlando. The first Orlando show was at a venue called Uncle Sam's, which was a bar on 436 and Hal Branch Road. Um, yeah, it was a very small bar, and a couple of I think Rode and Rich used to go in there occasionally for a beer, and they talked to the owner and like, we got a band, we'll play. So yeah, that was the very first Orlando show. It was at Uncle Sam's, and it was cool. I don't know. We got a write up in the Sentinel, and so I was like, okay, this is
Wow.
cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it kind of took off. But I guess um, it wasn't too long after that show. Maybe I'm trying to think. I don't know, 3 or 4 months later. Um, Rich, one of his college professors, was having a house party, and Rich convinced him that, oh, we got a band, we'll play your party. So he had a house downtown Orlando, and so I did a flyer and we put it all over Orlando for this house party. So we're playing this house party, and that's when I met Mike Brown from Damage and Spacefish,
Right.
and he was at that party, and just that really changed everything from that point on. He was just, he and I really, the more we talked, the more we hit it off. He was a graphic artist, by day, and same as me, working, and he had Damage, and then they were putting out their own stuff on Spacefish. So he started Spacefish, and he's like, if we team up, if we combine forces, we can really promote the bands and keep this going. And so I kind of became a partner with Mike Brown on Spacefish, and so that really, really, really kickstarted Love Gods. Yeah,
Yeah. Interesting. Did
yeah,
you have any opinions of Damage's music, considering they were like, at least in the early period, they were like punk and hardcore, and but they had no guitars. It was just keyboard.
yeah.
What did you think of that?
It was very different. I thought it was really unique because I had seen Damage play when I was going to those shows by myself. I had seen them play a few times. I saw them open for the Dead Kennedys, and I thought it was like just really cool that people didn't care that it wasn't guitars. People were just like this, you know, because they had such high energy in their shows, and I mean, I thought it was really cool. I mean, I had was listening to Devo. I like Devo. I like
Right.
that, that sound. So, um, but they had good energy and good songs, and yeah, I don't know. I liked it. So yeah,
When you saw them play with the Dead Kennedys, was that at the Syrian Lebanese
yes,
Hall? Oh
yes,
boy.
I was there. Yeah,
You were there at that show. So
I
I
was
know
there.
when Jim was on, he
Yeah,
mentioned it was a mayhem and it was all kinds of things going on,
yeah,
way over capacity that show. What is your
yes.
recollection of that night?
Yes, it was definitely over capacity for sure. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. There was a lot of people there. I remember it being extremely hot and sweaty in there, but I did think. I did kind of think to myself, well, I don't think they'll ever do another show here because this place is going to get destroyed. It was just, it was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the more memorable early shows there in Orlando for sure.
Right. Oh, I bet. Just hearing the story and
Yeah,
can only
yeah,
imagine how
yeah.
hot it was in there. So,
Yeah.
so you mentioned your connection with Mike Brown. He also is an illustrator too, and all
Yeah.
that. Did you all ever work together to co-produce flyers and posters and that sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I sent you some the images like of the Space Fish headquarters where where we put everything together and we did some different releases, compilations, try to promote the bands. There's another band on the label, Bloody Mary, as well, and we did we did a it was Mike's idea to he's like let's put out this magazine. I'm like magazine. He goes, yeah, we'll just do this crazy magazine that just is essentially to promote the bands, but we'll just make up these crazy articles, like these most irreverent, sarcastic, bizarro articles in here. And so I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. I could definitely get into that. So that's when we started Splash Magazine, and we put those out periodically. Just it was a free thing that we would give out at shows, and it was and people didn't really. It was extremely outlandish, and it was very sarcastic, and I think people were like, "What is this?" But it was just the humor that Mike and I had was just like, "Well, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that." And so another thing that we did was we went to the CMJ, which is a college music journal, which was similar to the South by Southwest now. It was in New York City, and that the photo that's on the lower right is when Damage and Lovegods went. We did a showcase at the CMJ, and we went. It has to be the craziest uh, travel show experience ever. We drove to New York, played the show that night, slept in the van, went to the CMJ the next day, commandeered a table. We were supposed to pay for a booth but we just commandeered a table over in the corner and started promoting Space Fish, and then got back in the van and drove back to Florida. Which, yeah, that's the show in New York. Uh, it was absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
your facial expression on the right picture looks very intense.
That's difficult. Yeah, it was just, I mean, to think about doing that now is just
Right.
insane to go, to
Was
drive
that
up, play a show, and then turn around and drive back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Was that the first time that the band ventured outside of the state?
No, in 80, I think it was 88, we did with the Dacron Hell tape, we did a little Southeast tour thing. We went to Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia, played a few shows, Pensacola. Um,
What was it like playing up in Pensacola, considering it's way up in the Panhandle?
it was really, really good. Really good. It was just a lot of people came out to the show. I think, everyone was so friendly and one thing that really stands out about that is we met a kid. He was probably, I don't know, maybe 18, 19 at the show, and he looked identical to the guy on the Dacron Hill cassette cover. his face, I mean, it was like, this is the guy. And I had never met this guy before, and he
Right.
looked exactly like him,
Wow.
which was just crazy. But yeah, it was really cool. And we played there again when we went on tour with Damage. We did it was called the Freak Show tour. We went to Pennsylvania and Ohio and New Jersey and a little southeast kind of north kind of thing. And but yeah, Pensacola was wild. I mean, it was just cool. Kids there at the shows, all ages show, they were singing the lyrics to the songs, and it was like, wow, this
Wow.
is really cool. Yeah, it was
That
really
is cool.
nice. Yeah, it was really, really cool. Um,
When you went up the East Coast and some of the other states, were there any other locations that surprised you that people were really digging the band and enjoying
yeah,
it?
yeah, we played one place that stands out was in Atlanta. We played a place called the Rec Room, and it was near the campus of Georgia Tech. But the guy that owned the place was he just he loved loved God. He wore the shirt all the time, and it was like he just was a big fan. So it was like, yeah, this is cool. So we played there quite a few times. So that's one place. We played the Pipeline in New Jersey. I think that was a pretty big club at the time. This is 1990.
Okay,
Yeah. But I guess, we did some touring, but not extensive. Yeah. Yeah.
sure.
I sent you another image like of, we didn't just do concerts. We tried to do these themed shows. So there's like, Mars Needs Tuna or the Roman Orgy 4th of July show, or Kiss the Cook, Wheel of Fish, all these crazy shows. We tried to make it more like an event. Um, and you know, the Mars Needs Tuna we donated. You had to bring a can of food. We donated the to charity, and um, the Roman Orgy show that's the photographs on the right. That's
Right.
from um, that show was a 2-day event at the Beach Club, which is Barbarella, our independent bar. And so Mike and I would just get together and talk about ideas, and we would just throw these outlandish, crazy ideas out. And he's like, "Well, what if we did a Roman orgy show?" I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, well." I'm like, "What are we going to do? Show gladiator movies?" And he's like, "Yeah, we'll show gladiator movies." So we had gladiator movies playing. We had women with togas serving grapes going on, and it
Wow.
was just crazy,
Whole theme
ridiculous.
going on.
It's ridiculous.
The Mars Needs Tuna, that flyer or poster, was that the first time you produced a poster that had that B movie vibe to it?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so for sure. Yeah, most of the other previous flyers were kind of like reflective of that time period, you know, the real gritty cut and paste kind of ransom note kind of looking hardcore flyer, the black and white kind of. So yeah, that's probably one of the first illustrative flyers I would say. Yeah. Um,
How were you producing these flyers? Like, were you using a lot of people in the past mentioned going to Kinko's and that type
yeah.
of thing? How were you producing yours?
Same, Kinko's, yeah. And I would also print them at work when no one was there. So, and Mike also had, he had at his office, he had access to printer. So, we kind of did things on the side for sure. Yeah.
Talk about those photos also on the right-hand side. What are we looking at there?
So yeah, that's the Roman orgy show. That was, I mean, the place was packed. It was like I don't know, each night there was 4 or 5 bands, and it was only $6 to get in. So, it was, and this was, we talked to John Gardner, who owned the Beach Club or Barbarella Independent Bar, and he agreed to let us do a show occasionally there. And so these were, like special event shows that we did there. But eventually, if you look in the photo on the lower right, my mom and my sister are actually in that photo. They're on the stairs in the back. They
Ah.
were visiting from Virginia, and they went to that. Surprisingly, they went to that show, and yeah, I was. They were like, "Okay, this is crazy. This
Right.
is." But yeah. But after talking to John, these kind of shows were successful. So Mike and I met with John, and we were like, what would you think about letting us do one night a week here? Do a club Spacefish one night a week. And because at that time, downtown Orlando, there was nothing going on. Absolutely, during the week, there was nothing going on at all. And so he agreed to give us Wednesday nights to do whatever we wanted with it. So that's when Club Spacefish was started.
Okay.
We started doing Wednesday nights there. We would go in, and we had other people that volunteer that were really into the scene. They would help us kind of convert the whole club over to Club Spacefish. We put up all these fishing nets and nautical stuff and outer space stuff. And then Mike built this giant Spacefish logo head that we would mount on the door where you go into the club. So it was, you know, trying to turn it into a completely different space.
Right.
And, he booked most of the bands. I would just kind of help with the promotion and the posters and stuff. And he was all networking with other labels and would bring touring acts through, and like bands like Alice Donut and other bands. And so yeah, it was a great thing there for a while. It was really good. We John John was very happy because we would bring a lot of people in on a Wednesday night. There's nothing going on down there, so yeah, it was really cool.
That is. And you think about some of the other clubs and places that people can go to see bands. You also mentioned the Beach Club. We've been
Yeah,
talking about Spacefish.
yeah.
What other ones were around at that time that you can remember that were also bringing in similar types of bands, but also perhaps even something entirely different that they were bringing in
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
Orlando area?
yeah. There was a lot in that time frame in the late '80s. There was a lot of venues that had live music. It was very, very different from now. There was, in addition to shows there at the Beach Club or Barbarella, there was the Beecham Theater did shows. A lot of shows there. There was uh, Visage. Visage did a lot of national touring acts. I saw the Ramones, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction. They all played there. Love and Rockets. There was, a lot of shows there. That was off of Lee Road in Orlando, um, Lee Road OBT area. Um, but there was also a whole other world of places that had cover bands, like, or 80s rock bands. Like there was the Fern Park Station, and there was the Post Time Lounge, and there was JJ Whispers. And so it was a completely different scene. There was a lot. And then downtown, there was also, it was called, at that time, it was called Valentine's, which is now the Social, but it was next, 2 doors down from the Beach Club Independent Bar.
So it
So
was Valentine's before the Sapphire Supper Club?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, I was going to talk about that when I get into Rocket 88.
Yeah, yeah, of
Tell
course.
you what
I didn't know
happened.
it. I didn't know it had another name before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Interesting.
it was Valentine's, and then it was Downtown Jazz and Blues Club. So yeah, it was a very different scene back
Sure.
then. Uh, yeah, it just seemed like there was a lot more um, live music. A lot of at that time there was a Jam magazine which was a free publication, and they were extremely supportive of the music scene, and it was a really beneficial publication because they promoted all different genres of music, and they did articles on local bands, and they eventually, it was a statewide publication, so it wasn't just Orlando. And so they started doing this. They called them the Jammy Awards, which was local music or Florida Music Awards, and they had it at the Bob Carr. And it was a big event. They showcased bands that were nominated for best metal band, or best country band, and um, we were the best hardcore band for several years. And it was like, okay, this is pretty
I'm
cool.
surprised considering that could be a very niche genre
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that was even a category.
exactly. Yeah, it was really cool. But I think they were Daryl was the owner, and he was just he liked what Mike Brown and I were doing. He just thought it was cool that we were just kind of out there and doing our own thing. It was kind of very different. Just like, oh, this is definitely bizarre. So,
In a good
uh,
way, I
yeah,
would say.
yeah, he liked it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like, Jim Faraday had the figurehead and his bands like Braille Closet and Naomi's Hair, and we did shows with them, and we would help, promote shows together and stuff. But I don't know, it was different. I think the bands that were on Spacefish were different from the bands that are on Figurehead, and it was just kind of everyone was supportive of each other,
Right.
but it was kind of a friendly rivalry, I
Sure.
guess. So, yeah.
I want to talk about the second release from Lovegods In Leisure Suits, Come Here Often.
Yes.
So that came
Mm,
out in 1989.
yeah.
And talk about the behind the music of that release, because I think that was the first time that the band had released something on a 12-inch
Yeah.
album.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was recorded in, I think it was at Main Street Studios in Winter Garden. And yeah, it's a better production value than the cassette. I think it was it was it was a good time. That the guy on the cover is his name is Al McGray. I took that photo. He's squeezed himself into a leisure suit that we found.
I would say so. A little
But
maybe two, three sizes too small.
yeah, yeah. That was the good. That was the best part about it.
Right.
But yeah, I think one of the again, it was also kind of an eclectic mix of songs on there. There's a real bluesy tune called 7 or 11, but there's also a hardcore thrash version of the Bee Gees, How Deep Is Your Love? So that
There
was,
is.
yeah, so
It's not often you hear a hardcore thrash version of Bee Gees anything. So whose idea was to do that?
that was mine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought, I want, I always wanted to do that because I didn't want to, I didn't want to just do the standard hardcore punk kind of thing. I always wanted to be kind of a little out there. Um, I thought doing like throughout Love Gods, we did ridiculous covers like Forever in Blue Jeans, and we did uh, Kung Fu Fighting and Macho Man, and just stuff that was like, I don't know. We would play a lot of these hardcore shows, and the people would just be like, "What? What?
I
What?"
can only imagine the reaction with some of those songs at a
But that's what I
audience
liked.
like
I
that.
liked. I
Right.
liked. That's what was funny to me. That was the whole point to me, was to get a reaction. But so it was. Yeah. After this recording, the band, we got we got we were playing out more, and I think we got more notoriety and more of a following. And I was noticing I don't really, again, the whole thing for me originally was just as this creative outlet where I can do things to express myself artistically. I wasn't a musician really, and so I was like, but I was performing, I was straining my voice all the time. I was kind of, yeah, hardcore, screaming vocals, and so I thought after we got a little more of a following, I was like, if I'm really gonna actually pursue this or do something a little more seriously here, I've got to I've got to figure out what I'm doing to my voice. So that's when I started working with a vocal coach, Ron Feldman, who was here in Orlando, and he pretty much changed. He changed everything, really. I worked with him for 6 years, so it was extremely beneficial for me because I really learned to actually sing.
Right. Sure.
So and properly, which and again, I'll preface that I still don't consider myself to be like a fantastic singer by any means, but um, it was extremely beneficial. I mean, I've always prided myself on being a front man, being able to like bring the energy and the craziness to the show because I always everything is visual to me. I think it's all, I don't know. This came very, very early. Someone told me, it may have been Ron, he told me that, people hear with their eyes. And I've never forgot that. He goes, you go to a concert, you hear with your eyes. It's the show. It's the show. So that's my mantra. I've always,
Yeah.
for 38 years, that's all about the show. So,
And I feel like when you look
yeah,
at some of the different periods,
yeah,
both Love Gods and Rocket 88, you can see the time and effort, which I imagine it
yeah,
took preparation to put the outfits together and all that. So, uh,
yeah.
how are you finding a lot of the different outfits that both yourself and other band members would be wearing out to some of the gigs?
Yeah, for Love Gods was we would go to thrift stores and try to find the most outlandish 70s attire that we could find, the most brightest colors and the crazy. Um I think I sent you some photos of Love Gods live shots where you can kind of see the definitely highly flammable for sure. The polyester was it was a lot, yeah. But yeah, um,
There's definitely some good photos in this batch, I would
yeah,
say, Mike. And
yeah,
there's a lot of polyester going
yeah,
on.
oh yeah, yeah. The on that one, that was the later stages of that was like 91, 92. Love Gods. The And then that's the early Love Gods with Tom and Rich and Rode. Um, Yeah, I don't know. We would just the I guess one thing like the photo on the right hand side where I'm wearing that the black and white with that leisure suit. That was there was a girl who came and I used to come to a lot of shows and she brought that leisure suit. She said it belonged to her dad and he had it in his closet. And it just happened to be my size. And it was a banana colored leisure suit. And it was just like mint condition. So I was like,
Wow.
I literally wore that, oh, I don't know, dozens and dozens of shows with different shirts, but it was just like it was just a classic leisure suit.
Did you ever get so hot during a set that you're like, you know what, this thing's coming off?
Absolutely.
At least the top part's coming off.
Absolutely. That's why a lot of shows where I don't have a shirt on because I was dying.
Right.
So, yeah, for sure. For
Well, you
sure.
had a good Florida tan going on, so that's important.
Uh, yeah, yeah, that was, yeah. Oh, man. But yeah, I think, for people that may have heard of Love Gods or never saw Love Gods, I think these images might give you just some idea of what was happening back in the day. But yeah. So after the Come Here Often, we did Groove on it, which was the next release, which was I think that was the 91, yeah, 1991. At that time, Tom left the band and Rode left the band. So Chuck Karamang, he's on the right hand side in the photo. He uh, was bass player. He was a friend of Rhodes, and he played with us for a little while after Tom left. But when Rode left, we were looking for another guitarist, and Ron Feldman, my vocal coach, said, "I know this guy. I think he might be a good fit for you guys. He's a really good guitar player. He's not playing with anyone right now." So he introduced me to Bob Wainwright, who's standing next to me in the photograph. Um, and he had a different he had a different background. Bob was kind of into more rock metal type stuff, but he also liked blues and funk. And but he did really fit right in with the band, and he was a really talented guitar player. And so we played with Bob for a while, and then we started working on some new songs, and then we went into the studio and did the groove on it, which at that time vinyl was kind of not the most popular format. Actually, cassettes were, which so we really that was actually a cassette only release.
Right.
Yeah.
Were there other places popping up around the Orlando or just Central Florida area that the band was now playing, or was the band still playing at some of the same venues that were going on in the late 80s?
Um, yeah, a lot of the same. We did play we played at the Ritz in Ybor City. We played at um, Club Detroit over there in Tampa. We
What was it
played,
like playing in Tampa at some of those places? I know a lot of bigger touring bands would come through and
yeah,
play the Ritz at least, and Club Detroit.
yeah,
A lot of great stories I've heard about that venue too.
yeah,
So what was it like
yeah.
playing out there?
It was good. Tampa has a good music scene, still does. It's it's a very good scene. They had at that time there was a magazine called Players Magazine, which was about the pretty much Tampa, St. Pete area music scene, kind of like Jam Magazine here. But um, so we had gotten some write-ups in there, some photos in there, and so whenever we played over there, we got a good response. It was good. We played on in Melbourne. I played in Cocoa Beach a few times. Yeah, St. Augustine. Yeah, Miami. We played. Yeah, we played around Florida quite a bit.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
want
it
to
was
talk more
good.
about that too, just thinking about some of the other places in Florida that you played. But you mentioned Melbourne, and a
Mhm.
guest that's been on the podcast. I know you know Greg Reinell
Yes.
was out in Melbourne and
Yep.
being a amazing artist and some great bands that Greg was in too.
Yeah.
How long into this era did you meet until you met Greg?
I met Greg. He was playing with Screaming Iguanas of Love, and we did. I think it was one of the shows we did at Spacefish, at the beach club, Club Spacefish. We had Screaming Iguanas a couple times, and that's when I met Greg. I think it was probably, it may have been 90, 91. Yeah. But yeah, at that time, when the first time I saw Screaming Iguanas, Mark Zayas was also playing guitar with the Screaming Iguanas. He played with them for a little while, and he and Greg go back to Jaded Bovines, a long time. So
I was going to ask, did you ever see the Jaded Bovines
I
back
did
then?
not. I heard lots of stories, but I never saw it.
I feel like it's funny though because like everybody who may have was in a band later that sounded nothing like that all had origins in crusty hardcore bands.
Right? Yeah, I know. It is wild. I think, yeah, yeah, that energy, I guess. Just,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I guess so after Groove on it, we did a lot of shows. We did, I guess one of the highlights for Love Gods was, again, they did the Jammy Award thing. It was at the Bob Carr, and we Love Gods played at the Bob Carr, and which is downtown Orlando, and we that was great. We had uh, go-go dancers. We had all this crazy lighting effects and all this stuff going on. It was, but after that, we hooked up with this. There was a local dance troupe called the RPM Dancers, and so they would actually come to the shows, and we had these pedestals on each side of the stage, and they would go dance during the Love Gods show. And then, it was with all the outlandish outfits and the go-go dancers and all this stuff going on. It was quite a spectacle.
You
So,
mentioned though that was important to have this show, this
yes,
performance.
absolutely. To me, it was the visual thing.
Did you
Absolutely.
feel like as the visual was almost growing, did the band sound evolve with that too?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, it was yeah, for sure. We did we still did some crazy covers, like we did on the Groove on it. We did a cover of "You Sexy Thing" by Hot Chocolate, and that was always a crowd favorite. I think it was kind of a garage rock funk version of that song, which was cool. But yeah, it definitely changed. And then after, um, I was going to say, after Chuck left, the bass player, and then Rich left Love Gods. I was the only original guy left, so it was me and Bob. And then that last photo of Love Gods, the 1992 lineup, was Sean Cody on drums and Jason Ackerman on bass. Um, and those are the RPM dancers in that photograph, the go-go dancers. Um,
A very cool photograph. Who took this?
it was a photographer. Her name was Lisa Sharkey. She was a photographer here in Orlando, and she she came up with that whole look for that backdrop, that studio kind of Dali-esque Pee-wee's
Yeah.
Playhouse kind of thing.
I feel like I heard of
Yeah.
Lisa before. Did she do other photos of other bands in the scene?
Yeah, she did. She did. In that, in the early 90s, she was pretty well-known photographer in Orlando. I'm not sure what happened to her, but yeah, so this is the point where the band kind of really shifted because Jason and Sean were quite a bit younger. I mean, I think Sean was still a senior in high school.
Wow.
He was 17, but he was like a child prodigy. Incredible drummer. I mean, absolutely fantastic drummer. And yeah, he was really good, but it was a different dynamic. It was kind of, we were keeping it going, but it was like, I don't know if this is, I don't know. I don't know. I was kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
and
You think about it though, Mike. I mean, the band started in 87. Although there's been some lineup shifts, you had a really good run for a
true.
punk and hardcore band. I mean, 91, 92.
Yeah,
I
true.
mean, I think a lot of bands of that era didn't make it that far.
That's true. No, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. But I will say that like this is the like turning point. We were playing a show and this is and kind of leading into Rocket 88. Lovegods was playing a show in St. Augustine and and there was a band that we had done a couple shows with from over in Titusville, Cocoa Beach area, called the Potential Valentinos. And the bass player for Potential Valentinos was Chuck Zayas. So we had done a few shows with them, and when I first saw them, I was like, this guy has got the look. He has got the Paul Simonon Clash look vibe down. I mean, just I said, and I was thinking to myself, if I ever put another band together, I gotta hook up with this guy because it's just like he's got a stage presence that's just. So we were playing in St. Augustine with Potential Valentinos and uh, with the go-go dancers, and it was a crazy thing. I had on this jumpsuit that I had from the 70s that had mirrors on the sleeves and on the bell bottoms, and it was just
Wow.
way over the top. And I remember coming off stage at the end of the show, and this guy comes up to me and he's like, "That's the greatest thing I've ever seen." And I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, I know you. You're the guitarist in Screaming Iguanas." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm Mark Zayas." He goes, "That's a freaking hilarious. That was the greatest thing I've ever seen." And so we started talking, and there was an after party. And I went to the after party, and Chuck Zayas and Mark Zayas, we were all talking, and we were like, Chuck was in Potential Valentinos and Mark was in King Cowboy, this other band. And we were talking like, yeah, we like our bands, but I really want to do something different, something that's just very different, so we were talking and the conversation like roots music, Americana, rockabilly, and, like a Clash meets Gene Vincent kind of thing. I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. It sounds really cool. So that is the point where it shifted really. It was like, this is, yeah, I could really, really get into that, because I think I just wanted to do something different and it seemed fresh and very different.
Right.
So, um, yeah, that was 92. And then, so we got together, um, did some rehearsals. Mark's like, I got some songs, I got some ideas, and, so we got together, jammed a little bit, and we started. This is really cool. This is great. So uh, we took out an ad for a drummer, looking for a drummer, and again in Jam magazine, it's like the connecting thing for all this
Right.
stuff. And one person that answered the ad was Steve Plotnick. He was playing in blues bands and jazz bands, and a very traditional style drummer. And I remember Chuck was living in Titusville, so he would come over for a rehearsal. But so Mark and I auditioned Steve without a bass player. We just at Mark's apartment, and with just a kick and a snare and hi hat. I was like, and we just it just he just had the chops. He was really the drummer was just rock steady, and was like, and so we tried to pitch the idea to Steve what we were doing, and he was like, "What? Do you want to do what?" So I was like, "Yeah, it's all originals." He's like, "You're not doing what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we've got all these ideas for songs. We want to do like a Clash meets Stray Cats meets Gene Vincent kind of thing."
Yeah.
So um, we sold him on it. So then we started practicing and rehearsing and stuff. And so um, we did a little recording, a demo cassette to try to get some bookings as Rocket 88. And this is where it kind of segues because I still did Lovegods In Leisure Suits occasionally, and they were all still in their other bands. But then we did this little demo recording, and so we our very first show as Rocket 88 was at the Beecham Theater. We did Jim Faraday put on an event called Fur is Dead. It was a benefit concert, and I think there was 6 or 8 bands on the bill, and it was a kind of a bizarro thing because Rocket 88 played first or second for that concert, and then Love Gods was the final act. So I did both bands that night. So it was like this, but that was the final Love Gods show in 1992, was that concert. So
How tired
yeah.
were you after pulling double duty? Like,
Yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot. I remember I was like, I don't know, it was a weird feeling, kind of sad, but then not, I was like at the end of the Love God set, I was like, oh, I guess it's just time to hang up the leisure suit and
move on to another type
move
of
on.
suit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it had run its course. I mean, it was
Right.
great. I loved it, but I was ready for something different, something new. So,
A little more sophisticated. I feel like your outfit got a little bit more,
oh yeah, definitely a total shift.
right. It was a shift.
But yeah.
Did you feel like there were a lot of fans of the Love Gods era that were also becoming fans of Rocket 88?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's very, very different. But I think people that, appreciated the show, if not the music, they like the show, they felt like, with these guys, it's still going to be a show, so I got to go check it out.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
No
So
more go-go dancers though, right?
no, no, none of that. We just stripped down. Yeah, yeah,
I want to share a picture too, just from that early period here. And
yeah. That's a
I mean, if I didn't have any idea what your music sounded like, I can imagine what it
yeah,
sounded like just from the look of the band. So talk
yeah.
about these pictures.
Yeah, that's 1992. Those are the original promo photos. Um, the one on the left was taken. It was taken downtown Orlando, and um, that's Steve Plotnick, Chuck Zayas in the back, Mark Zayas on the right, and that's me in the middle. Yeah, that photo was taken by Lori Skorbiak, she was my that was my first wife. Um, the photo on the right was taken by Johnny Cooker. He's a photographer here in Orlando, really good photographer. That was taken actually at our rehearsal space, which was at Mingo Trail in Longwood. That's where that one was taken.
Were there other bands that were also rehearsing at the same space? Was it
Oh
shared?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's funny, because Lovegods had a rehearsal space there, and then Rocket 88 had a rehearsal space there for over 20 some years. So I spent a lot of time on Mango Trail and Longwood for sure. Yeah. But there's a lot of other bands in that same warehouse complex. So yeah, it was not always, at times it was not conducive to writing stuff because you could hear the other bands coming through the walls. There's a lot of metal bands and other things going on. It was just, yeah, but it's one of the few places that bands could rehearse. So full volume. It was, but
Right.
we were fortunate. We had one of the nicer spaces. We had a full air conditioning and a restroom, bathroom in there,
There you
and
go.
sink and everything. Some of
All
them,
the important things you had.
yeah, a lot of them were just a garage. There's no
Yeah.
AC, nothing. So yeah,
Did you ever
yeah.
play any shows with whether it was Love Gods or Rock 88 where the venue just had no air conditioning?
Well, a lot of outdoor gigs. Yeah. I can't think of any indoor gigs though where it was. That's a good question. No, I can't think of any off the top of my head. But yeah, but yeah, a lot of outdoor gigs in Florida are brutal, just brutal.
I heard stories. I don't know if you were able to attend any of these shows when Gigi Allen made it to the area, whether it was Tampa or I'm not sure if he played Orlando or not, but where I heard stories about those shows where it'd
Yeah,
be no air conditioning and the smell was just out of this world. Did you
yeah.
ever get a chance to see
I
him
did
play?
not.
Okay.
No, I did. No, I was not a fan. No, I did not. Um, yeah, I was a little surprised when Mike Brown told me he had booked Gigi at Club Spacefish when after Club Spacefish became a full-time nightclub on Church off of Church Street. It was no longer just a Wednesday night at the Barbarella. It was a full-time nightclub. And when he told me that he booked them, I was like, "Are you sure about that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it'll be fine." I'm like, "Are you sure about that?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm covering the PA and the monitors and everything with plastic. We'll be fine." Are you
Wow.
sure? No, we'll be fine. So, no, I didn't go. I wasn't there that
You
night.
weren't there that night. You missed that
Notorious.
show.
I was not there. Yeah.
Was it fine or did something happen from what you were
Well,
aware of?
I think the equipment survived, but yeah, you know, he did what he does on stage, and it became I don't know, the media and the alcohol, tobacco, fire, ATF people just like, we're not letting this go.
Right.
So yeah, it eventually ended in the downfall of the nightclub.
Oh
Yeah,
wow. You that was
yeah,
a part of
yeah,
wow,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It was a shame. I think again, Mike and I were still doing Space Fish. But I wasn't involved in the day-to-day of the nightclub. I was just helping with the label and the posters and the Splash magazine. Um, so I don't know the exact specifics, but yeah, I think it just became such a fight to stay open after that, with the alcohol license and the constant harassment. It just, yeah, it's a shame, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So Mike, after that, Mike moved to New York, and he lives in New York now, and he's got his own company in New York. He's very successful. I knew he's one of the brightest most creative people I've ever met. He's a really talented guy. So I knew he would be successful no
Sure.
matter what. So yeah.
I don't typically do a lot of teasers on the podcast, but since we've been talking about Damage and Mike Brown, coming in the late summer will be an episode
Nice. Awesome.
dedicated to Damage. So,
Oh, it'll be nice to see if timeline coincides and my dates are right. I mean, like,
we get a chance to explore even deeper
yeah,
into the Damage journey and
yeah,
also Club Space Fish
yeah,
and the
yeah,
label as well. So,
yeah. That's
uh,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah, it is. I
he's a
want to
great
talk.
guy.
Yeah, he is. We've had a chance to chat, and I'm really excited for that episode when it does come down. Uh, I want to talk a little bit about the studio recording. You mentioned about the demo as
Mhm.
far as Rocket 88. So the first recording, at least that I ever became aware of, was the 7-inch record.
Yeah,
Mission to Mars, which again had that B movie feel
yeah.
to it. So talk about that 7-inch and the artwork and some of the songs that were
Okay.
on that release.
Yeah, that was recorded in 1992. Actually, it came out, actually, it was 93. I'm sorry, 93. Um, we recorded that at King Snake Records in Sanford, and Rick Bailey was the engineer. He guitarist for Heart Attack Diner, a
Yeah.
local
They were
label.
blues guys, right? Who ran
Yeah,
that?
they had a
Yeah.
lot of, they recorded a lot of blues acts that were
Yep.
on the, I think it was Alligator Records
Yep.
label. And yeah, we just thought that that studio had that vibe we were looking for. And, the thing about Rocket 88 is it was, a lot of it was Mark's vision uh, musically because he was the primary songwriter. Probably 99% of the songs, Mark wrote the songs, Mark wrote the lyrics, came up with the arrangements, everything. It's Mark's genius. He was really, really good at writing that kind of material. He had a lot of really great ideas. And, he told me when we first met, he's like, I want to I want to do this band where I can focus on the songwriting and playing the guitar, and I can have somebody else front the band. Someone else can do all that, and I just, and so I was like, okay, that definitely works for me. So,
I mean, he picked the right person with the right amount of energy to do that.
yeah, so yeah, and I thought, this is great because, with Chuck's got the look and the playing, and Mark's got all the songs, and I'll bring the energy. So, um, yeah, but that first recording, I think, is uh, probably won't. I mean, we still play all those songs today. We still play them all. Those are just such classics. And there's some of the songs that have piano on them. Mark also played piano on those songs. But I think Rick did a really good job of capturing the energy of the band there. It's kind of a raw recording, but it got really a very favorable response. And, I,
It left you wanting more. It's like, this is it?
yeah, yeah,
Just these
good. Well,
handful of
that's good.
songs. I need more.
That's
That,
good. Yeah,
that happens
yeah,
sometimes when a band may just release an EP or even just a 7-inch with 2 or 3 songs on it, and
yeah,
it does leave you hanging a little bit.
yeah, yeah. That's good. Yeah, it was, yeah, we were in a 93. That was, um, we, I guess, to kind of talk a little bit about where we were able to play and what we were doing. It was like at that time there was no one doing rockabilly or roots music because it was kind of after the Stray Cats kind of had I won't say peaked, but their popularity was not what it was in the early 80s when they had all the hits. And so there was really no one doing that. And we originally Chuck was just playing electric bass, and one day on the way to rehearsal, not long after we had started the Rock 88, we Mark and I were driving by a pawn shop in Longwood. We saw an upright bass in the window. I'm like, we gotta buy that for Chuck, because Chuck's, if we're doing rockabilly, we gotta have an upright bass.
Right.
And so we bought it, and Chuck, we took it into practice, and Chuck's like, and what am I supposed to do with that? It's like, so I give Chuck, a lot of credit. He just took the bass and just like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of practicing, and now I think he's one of the best upright players
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. He's just, but that was one thing that also kind of set us apart, because no one was playing with an upright bass. No one was doing that sound. And I think even though it was, kind of it was rockabilly, but we kind of still had that punk edge to it. The shows were all, yeah, really frenetic, and in your face. And it was like, it wasn't just doing traditional rockabilly.
Right.
So it definitely had an edge to it. At first, people were kind of like, wow, well, this is wild. Because this is, I mean, this was way before, at least in this area, no one knew Reverend Horton Heat or any of that kind of stuff. No one knew about that slapping. It later became Psychobilly, Tiger Army, all those bands. No one was doing it at the time. So it was very, very different. And so, um, a couple of things I did just wanted to mention was like when we first started after the 7-inch, then we started, working on new material. There's a couple people that are like extremely essential to the Rocket 88 story, and that's Ray Eamon, the owner of Rock and Roll Heaven, the record store.
Right.
We would go in there and talk to Ray, and he would just like an encyclopedia of knowledge of recording 50s music and recordings and who played on what record. And so he would actually make cassette tapes for us of just obscure rockabilly songs, obscure artists, and Johnny Powers and Dennis Harrell and Ursel Hickey and all these guys. And we would just listen to all this stuff, and we would get ideas, and we would do covers of some of this stuff. And that was extremely beneficial. And another person is a guy named Jim Davis, who used to come to see Rocket 88 play. And he had a radio show. His name was JD the DJ. And so he would also make tapes for us, but he would do it like he was on air. So he would have the intro, like only
That's
the
cool.
platters that matters and the stacks of wax and all this stuff, and it was so
Right.
cool, but just crazy obscure stuff that we would have never, it really opened our eyes. And we, the more we kind of dug into that stuff, we realized that that's where some of this stuff is way more punk rock than punk rock, because this is like 1954.
Right.
It's just crazy out
It
there.
is. It is. Did you
Yeah.
learn about any local rockabilly musicians from Central Florida or even any other parts of the state during this education, so to speak, from some of these folks?
Uh, that's a good question. I know, but I did meet people that would come to see the shows that were living here, that saw shows in the 50s and would tell me about it, talk about, I saw Jerry Lee Lewis, in 1957 and this kind of thing. And it was really cool to meet people that were there, in the
Right.
very, very beginning. I don't recall meeting musicians though. Unfortunately, that would have been cool.
I'm
We
always on
did.
the hunt though for these regional compilations,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
haven't come across any from Central Florida or really
right,
any other part of Florida except Miami. There
yeah,
were actually, and surprisingly, a lot of rockabilly musicians from the 50s in
yeah,
Miami.
yeah,
I've stumbled upon some 45s
right.
and some compilations, and um, so there was, I guess, stuff going on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, you got to pass that along to me.
I will.
Sure. Yeah, but that the Ray and JD were just, I think, very instrumental in kind of putting us in that direction of these like crazed cover songs that we could do, that real obscure stuff that we still play a lot of them to this day, like Long Blonde Hair and Crazy Lovin' and those kinds of songs. And um
And that's the thing too, Mike, is sometimes those songs are so obscure that when people go out and hear you play them, they have no idea that that
yeah,
is someone else's
yeah,
song. It sounds like it could
yeah,
be an original.
yep, that's so true. Yeah, a lot of people, yeah, they but that's I think Mark writes stuff in that vein. It's kind of it's got that frenetic energy, but and the catchy lyrics, and so it kind of all blends together. So it's not really easy to say, is that one of your songs or is that somebody else's? It's kind of all in there together. But
I think some
yeah,
of those songs too did come on the first full length release, Rock Around.
yeah, yeah. That was recorded in let's see, 1994 at Greg Reich Studios in Altamont Springs, and Wally Walton was the engineer producer there. Um, yeah, that song is where I think we were really just. I mean, the band was playing a lot. It was uh, it was just a real tight unit at the time, and I think those songs really were great. We um, also did a few, and Mark played piano on some of those songs, and also we brought in a few horn players to do some parts on some of those songs. And that's when, after that recording, we brought in Terry Mooney to play piano uh, for some of the live shows and stuff. He's now playing with the Tremolords, but he was a friend of mine and a really good piano player, and so he started playing shows with us. But that recording was, yeah, I'm proud of that recording. I think it holds up for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some of the venues that we were playing at the time was like I mentioned before, there was a place called Valentine's, which was down on Orange Avenue next to Independent Bar, next to the Beecham, and it became the Downtown Jazz and Blues Club. And so we went down. They would have jazz and blues acts mainly on the weekends, occasionally during the week. But we went down, we talked to them, and we're like, well, just give us one night. We'll play one night, give us one night for a couple months. We'll see how it goes. And, if you like people we bring in, and so they gave us Monday nights. It was like, but eventually we played there on Monday nights for several months, and people started coming in. They like, we got a pretty steady crowd, and
I guess if you have a reason to go out on a Monday night.
yeah, it was again, it was very different back then, but
Right.
this was 93, 94, and and then another place that we played a lot was the Junkyard, which was a blues club in Castleberry off Hell Branch Road, 436. They did national touring bands, and yeah, a lot of blues acts played there. And again, we said, just give us one night, give us a try. So we were trying to target blues clubs because I think, once we got in the door, I think people were like, yeah, this definitely will work. It fits. So, um, yeah, we played at the Junkyard it was on Thursday nights. And then eventually we were doing weekends there, did a lot of weekends there. We did. And then the Downtown Jazz and Blues Club was bought by Jim Faraday and Shaney, and they changed the name to the Social. So that's when we still played there a lot. We played also at the Go Lounge, which was downtown. Did a lot of shows there. But the Social was kind of like our home away from home. We played there quite regularly. We played a lot of New Year's Eve concerts there for them, and yeah, it was just that's my favorite place to play.
Do you remember what other local bands were sharing the stage with you guys at that time?
Uh, ooh, I'm trying to think. Like there was bands that we did the shows with. We did the shows with the Riddlers. We did there's a band called Psycho from Texas. Um, Nutrijet, Gregory Nell's other band. And we were still doing occasional Space Fish shows with, even shows with Damage, and we would do other things like that. Um, Trying to think. Um, Hate Bombs. We did a lot of shows with the Hate Bombs.
Hate bombs are also kind of cool because they also have that B movie aesthetic to
Yeah,
some stuff they did too.
yeah. I love those guys. They're good friends with them. They just I mean, that's energy. They're great. I mean, they're great. I love their 60s garage sound, but they
Right.
perfected it. They perfected it for sure.
Did you ever go on a tour, whether it be throughout the state or even with um, outside Florida with any Florida bands at all during the
Yeah,
Rocket 88 period?
yeah. With Rocket 88, yeah, we toured pretty extensively. Um, we after we did a lot of shows, when and through 94 through 90, I guess it was late 96. Um, the original lineup, we did a lot of shows in Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, um, all over. But in 90, late end of 96 is when Mark he wanted to take a break. So we ended up there was a shift there that kind of went in a little bit different direction. Marcus Brixa came in to play guitar, and we kind of Chuck and I were like, maybe we could do something with the horns like we did a few songs on Rock Around. So we kind of changed it a little bit to more of a even more roots, like 40s, early 50s jump blues kind of sound with horns. And that allowed us to be uh, accessible to a lot more blues type venues or jazz clubs. So we did tour. We had a couple booking agents, and we toured quite a bit. Midwest, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, New York, uh, you know, Virginia. Um,
Was this in a van or did you all take separate vehicle? How'd you make the trip?
um, it was like a 15 passenger van with a trailer on the back, with the equipment in it. So it was definitely a different dynamic. We did a recording in 1997. It was called "Don't Say Goodnight." It was a very different, with the horns and everything. It was we were we kind of like accidentally or I don't really, it just so happened that that movie Swingers came out. And so people were like, the whole swing music thing just kind of like really took off out of nowhere. And we just kind of were like, just happened to be doing jump blues kind of stuff that was kind of similar a little bit, I guess, like Big Joe
Perfect
Turner.
timing.
Yeah. And it wasn't planned
Right.
and we weren't trying to, cash in on it or anything. And then, but once that kind of took off, we were able to, I mean, we were playing 15 nights a month, 15, 17 nights a month. We were playing all over. We played at, there's a venue at Disney called Atlantic Dance Hall, and we were playing there 2, 3 nights a week. And it was, it was a definitely a different vibe. And it did make us a little more accessible, I guess, to play a lot. We were doing corporate gigs, a lot of this
Wow.
stuff. But again, I tried to keep the energy, keep it a little edgier. But when you got, we worked it up to an 8-piece band, you got a 3-piece horn section, and it was a lot.
Yeah. No, I can imagine.
Yeah,
People.
to keep to keep all of that going it was a lot. Yeah. Uh yeah, so that was 97, 98. Some memorable shows though. We did play um the Supper Club in New York City in Times Square 2 nights. We played the Roxy in New York. We played the Windows on the World, the top of the World Trade Center. Uh some just great with Aragon Ballroom in Chicago. There's 2,000 people swing dancing. I mean, there were some great, memorable shows, really, really, really good times.
Did you all ever record a music video, considering there was this boom, right, of
Yeah,
bands who were, whether swing or just
yeah,
big band and that sort of thing, this whole
yeah,
revival of this
yeah.
old sound. So did you all ever record a video?
Um, we did not a formal video. I have videos of live shows that we did. Like we did, there's some videos of from the Sapphire Supper Club, the social, where with the horn section, and it's really cool to see the place just packed out with people, and with the full horn section, it was yeah, it was great. But we didn't do a formal video, no, unfortunately. It was again, it was a mixed bag, There was good times, good shows, but then there was this constant revolving door with the horn section and the piano because Terry didn't really want to tour. So we had fill-in players for out-of-town gigs. We had, session players for shows here and there. We had hired guns coming in to do one show, and it's a very difficult dynamic
I
to
can
keep
imagine
to
a
keep
lot more
going.
moving parts when you have that
Yeah, yeah,
bigger
yeah.
band. I know you mentioned the piano a couple of times, and I want to just share this picture because you don't see this every day.
Oh yeah, I definitely wanted to mention that because that's one of the things that the band became known for was the flaming piano. Uh, so yeah, the photo on the left is that's Terry Mooney on the piano. That's at the social or Sapphire.
Right.
Um, so we built this when Terry first started playing with us. We actually brought an upright piano to to the gigs. We would rent a trailer and haul it in and set it up, and a real upright. And it became logistically just such a nightmare to try to mic it and everything. So we ended up building this facade so that it looked like a real piano and with a keyboard.
Wow.
And
Okay.
you know, so we were talking one day, and I said it'd be great if we set the piano on fire at the end, and like Jerry Lee, and he's like, "Yeah, we could do that." And so we kind of planned it out that way with lighter fluid. He would have lighter fluid, and then just like towards the end of the set, the last song of the set, we were building up to this big finish, and he would just douse the top with lighter fluid and then just light it, and the flames would go up, and it was this crazy spectacle at the end that we would do a lot, especially if it was a bigger venue.
Right.
And
You have to coordinate to have the fire department on hand.
well, that's the next story I'm
Okay.
gonna tell you about because yeah, the photo on the right is Matt Burke, who played piano with us for uh, 2 or 3 years. He great piano player. He was really good at the boogie woogie stuff, but he was also a little out of control with the fire. So, we're talking excessive amounts of
I
lighter fluid.
mean, the
So,
flames do look higher on that photo than on the left photo.
yeah, this one particular show, this is from that show. This is Skipper's Smokehouse in Tampa, and this was the WMNF Rockabilly Ruckus one year. I think it was 2008. But I don't know if you've ever been to Skipper's Smokehouse, but
No.
it's a it's an outdoor venue, has a huge courtyard where the audience stands, but the stage is covered by, at that time, it had it was a metal roof, but it had a thatched look to it. So there's lots of wood and stuff that could easily just ignite. And so at the end of the show, the last song, we're building up, and Matt's pouring the lighter fluid on there, and he can't get it to light, so he just keeps pouring more lighter fluid on there, and we're extending the song, the ending of the song. He finally gets it to light, and the flames just shoot up. I mean, 5 feet, 6 feet, and I over the band, I could hear the sound man come. He was about, I don't know, 15 yards from the stage in the back, and I could hear him yell over the band, "Great white, great white!" And he just takes off and runs up like, the incident where Great White, people caught on fire in the stage with the pyrotechnics. And I really thought the whole place was going to go up in flames because they were so close to the roof. And, it was, people were freaking out. And, but Matt just kept playing.
Wow.
It was so awesome. And then he couldn't get the flames to go out. The sound man was screaming and yelling, "Put it out, put it out, put it out!" And the other people, there was another sound guy up by the stage, and he's like, "Put it out!" Matt grabbed the top of the piano, the piece that was on top, and he just pulled it off onto the stage, and then the carpet on the stage caught on fire, and I was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna burn this place
Right.
down."
I mean, what's next? The place is going to burn to the ground.
Needless to say, after that show, whenever we would show up for a gig, people are like, "No fire. There is no fire. You are not allowed to do the fire thing anymore." So that was like,
Can't blame them, Mike, after an
I
incident like
agree. I
that.
agree. Yeah, it was a good thing that just kind of got, wow, this is, yeah, we got it. Yeah, it
Was
was,
anyone there with a camcorder that show?
uh, possibly. I may have some footage of that. I
Okay.
have to look and I have photos, but video, I'm not sure. I think it just kind of caught everyone by surprise.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, even Matt was like, "Ooh, I think I overdid it here."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he always liked to push it, but yeah, it was a little scary.
If you push it any further than that, there's going to be nothing left.
Exactly. That's true.
So, wow. So, did you think of any other ideas to bring that performance stage show to the crowds, the places you were playing outside
Uh,
of the flaming
yeah,
piano?
well, yeah, before even before that, when we did the recording, the Alien Attack CD, which was in 2004, um, which is really the whole CD is very sci-fi B movie, wigged out uh, vibe to it. We had we had inflatable flying saucers going around through the crowd, and we had an air synth, theremin that had a big alien head on it with all these wacky lights and rocket lights, and a few shows we had a woman painted green who danced around like an alien. So yeah, we did other things, but and no more flaming piano. Yeah.
And the artwork for that record, was that yours as well?
Yeah. 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 It's kind of a definitely a takeoff on the old Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, B
Right.
movie kind of movie poster. Mhm.
I do like that artwork. And I think a lot of that started to appear even more so on the flyers and the posters for Rocket 88. Would you say that would be correct?
Yeah, yeah, definitely use a lot more of the pinup 50s kind of look for all the posters and flyers that I did for the band. Did a lot of, I think there's an image of the alien girl on the rocket that I did for our 20th anniversary show. I just wanted to do that kind of, yeah, those are just some of the posters over the years. There's a few of those that other people had, like the ruckus. Some of them are not mine, but I would say 90% of those are mine, 95%. Um, yeah, that's the kind of aesthetic I was kind of going for. I like to keep it clean, to make the all the information clearly visible,
Right.
the date, the venue, everything. But
How much time did that take you to put one together?
uh, it depends on if it's something that I'm doing an illustration for, like the rocket, the girl on the rocket. That took quite a bit longer than some of the other, yeah, the other posters. That one took quite a while. The others, I would, with the pinup kind of girl look, would not take quite as long. I would, um, find images of that I thought fit the show or the bands that we were playing with or the venue, and
Right.
kind of just kind of build off that. But yeah,
And
yeah, that's
I know we're talking about the artwork and just thinking about some of the bands that Rocket 88 had to play with. I mean, there's a lot of really great stuff going on these posters here. So, did any really stand out to you as some of your more favorite gigs to play and some of the perhaps bands that you had a chance to open for?
yeah, yeah. I sent you an image of well, there's a couple images, but the one that with Dick Dale and the Blasters and Wanda Jackson. Those were memorable because we did several shows with Dick Dale over the years, and when the first time we played with him that I thought was so just I'd never seen anything like it was he played the guitar so fast that he was melting guitar picks. And he was like,
Wow.
he would just shred and melt the guitar pick and throw it out in the crowd and just pick up another one. And it was the music was just at the junkyard, which was not. I mean, maybe. maybe 250 people venue, I guess. I mean, he's playing there and it was so loud that I thought the paint was peeling off the walls. I mean, it was just crazy. That was memorable.
And Dick Dale being such a surf legend, just a rock legend in general, I feel like. Did you ever have an opportunity to just chat with him and anything like
Yeah.
that happen?
Yeah, at that show for that poster, that was at the Plaza Theater. I did talk to him after the show, and his wife was there with him, and yeah, he had had some health issues, and he was just very appreciative of just being able to still play, and such a he was a very nice guy. He was anytime you get to actually talk to these people that you really that were there at the beginning of this, created a unique original sound. It's always just, it's a thrill. It's like Wanda Jackson. We played with Wanda Jackson at the Rockabilly Ruckus, and Rocket 88 backed her up during her set. And,
Wow.
just talking about, she's talking about, in the very beginnings, 56, 57, and she was, people called her the female Elvis. She's, just got that rock sound for a woman at the time was very, it was very unique. But she's super sweet lady. She's very nice. Marshall Lytle, the guy lower left, he was the bass player for Bill Haley in the Comets, the original bass player who recorded all of the original Bill
Yeah.
Haley recordings, The Rock Around the Clock, and we played with him at the Hard Rock, and he's actually in that photo. He's holding the bass that he used when he played Rock Around the Clock.
Wow.
You know, again, he was a super funny guy. He was just just such a thrill to meet, and him. And then the Blasters, I was a huge fan of the Blasters, big influence. And we played with them at the Social. They didn't really play Florida hardly ever. It had been probably over 20 years since they had played here. And so I was like, it was a thrill to play for them. But one thing, a funny story about that show was there were a bunch of guys there from different car clubs, the antique car clubs, and greaser looking guys, and at the show. And there was another guy there that was, I don't know, just happened to be down in the crowd. And people started, during the Blaster set, people just started pushing for some reason. And the guy spilled a drink on a guy, and then he pushed him back. And then another guy started pushing, and then some guy pulls a knife out. And all this is going on, but the Blasters just kept playing. Didn't even looked down, just kept playing, kept playing. Bouncers were coming in there. It was like this chaos in front of the stage, and the Blasters just kept right on playing. So they took this guy out, and there's this big commotion. The Blasters finished their song, and Phil looks up. Phil Alvin looks up, and he goes, "Huh? That's nothing." He goes, unless guns are drawn, we're just going to keep on going." So I thought that was
That's funny. I
that was hilarious.
guess the show must go on, right?
Yeah, man, they didn't care. It was like, yeah, let's just keep on going.
Yeah.
That was one memorable one. B-52s was at House of Blues. That was
I would imagine no knives were pulled out at that.
no knives, no knives at all. Just a fun vibe. Big fan of theirs forever. And that's another show I have to give Rock and Roll Heaven some thanks for, because Freddie Eamon, Ray's brother, the owner of Rock and Roll Heaven, is friends with Fred Schneider from B-52s, and Schneider was in Rock and Roll Heaven talking to Freddie, and he's like, "We're playing here in Orlando, and Yeah, and Freddie's like, "You have opening band yet?" And he goes, "I don't think so." And he goes, "You gotta get this. These guys are great. And it was sci-fi crazy." It was after Alien Attack, so they do all
Okay.
this wacky stuff. It'd be a great fit. So I credit Freddie Eamon for that, and that was a really cool show.
Oh, I
But
can imagine. I can,
yeah,
yeah. And
just wanted to mention one other show um, that I sent you a picture of, the Jerry Lee Lewis show, because that's probably the most memorable, pinnacle show for me. Was we played with Jerry Lee Lewis at the House of Blues, and he's always, one of my idols, Jerry Lee and Lux Interior. But so we were playing with Jerry Lee, and this was 1998. And what really, it was such a thrill. I mean, just to be on stage there with him, and but the thing about it is the House of Blues, the dressing room is overlooking, has a window that overlooks the stage. And so we're playing our set, and I look up and I see Jerry Lee in the window, and he's dancing, during our set. And I was like, "Oh man, this is just amazing. This is crazy that Jerry Lee Lewis is
right.
dancing." So after the show, backstage, um, some of his band, Kenny Loveless, comes up to me and he's like, "I have to tell you, that is a rarity because Jerry never watches the opening band. And to see him doing that, dancing, he goes, man, that really moved him because he doesn't do that. So Jerry Lee came up to me and he's like, "Man," he goes, "you boys are the best band I've seen in years." He goes, "That is some energy, man." He goes, "Dad, just love it. He's riding that bass like a bull, man. I love it." And so it was thrill, just such a thrill, to actually meet him, talk
I,
to him,
I
and
think your photo on the right tells the story. I
yeah,
mean, you were meeting someone that meant so much to you,
yeah,
and how cool is that? Not only did you get a chance to have that moment, but to open for
yeah,
Jerry Lee Lewis. I
yeah.
mean,
It was such a thrill,
very cool.
big time. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very neat.
So,
So, yeah, so definitely a lot of really great gigs that appeared to happen at the House of Blues. Did you
yeah.
prefer playing larger venues like that, or did you still like more of the more club type scene?
Uh, I like both, but the bigger the crowd, the better for me. I just feed off of that. That's my whole thing. It's always been about the show. Try to give people their money's worth. I do whatever I can to like pour it all out there. Uh, but the bigger the crowd, the better. Yeah, for sure. I love playing those big venues. It's just I still like the small clubs too, but yeah, the big venues are great. House of Blues had such a good vibe, and
Yeah.
I think we always had a good sound there.
Did you
So
ever catch wind of people being there at the show looking to sign bands and that sort of thing? Like, did that ever happen? Did the band ever come really close to signing a major record deal?
uh, yeah, we did a couple of showcases, music showcases. Like there was with Lovegods, we did a Southeast Music Conference showcase, and there was some record labels there that they talked to us and came to see us, and they're like, I mean, the show was incredible, but I don't know what is this? Is it punk? Is it blues? Is it hardcore punk? It's kind of all over the place. I think looking back on it now, I was like, it was maybe perhaps a little too eclectic to really, you know. But Rocket 88, yeah, we had some interest from labels, but it just never seemed to pan out. and unfortunately,
Yeah.
we
Had a lot
got,
of good write-ups too.
yeah, we got really close, but just for some reason, timing didn't pan out, it was disappointing. I was so driven, so focused on doing that. It's kind of disappointing, but now I look back on it and I just, whenever we play now, I just savor it. I savor every chance I get to be on stage. And,
Right.
I don't, I don't look at it as, what if, or coulda, shoulda, woulda. I just try to be in the moment, enjoy it when I'm on stage, and just, you know, don't take it for granted because,
Sure.
yeah,
I think also, the band appeared to stick to your sound. You were honest with your music.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
feel like personally, that's important. And sure, getting a record contract and
yeah,
all that is wonderful,
yeah,
from a financial point of view.
right.
But but I,
Yeah,
but I think you all really kept honest to your music and to the sound of the band.
yeah, try to. I think, again, I have to give a lot of credit for, in Rocket 80, I have to give the credit to Mark. Um, he's just a great songwriter. He's able to come up with these catchy tunes that, yeah, just I think they definitely stand the test of time. I think it's good stuff. It doesn't never really ever went into it saying like we got to come up with something where we can get airplay and we can
Right.
get this or it just we did definitely, like you said, try to stay true to ourselves, I think.
I
So
think also America may not always be the place where certain types of music gets the most appreciation. Was there ever any talk about Rocket 88 touring more globally?
yes, we uh yeah, I wish we I think we did actually have it was after Mission to Mars came out. We uh again, rock and roll heaven. Boz Bohr, the guitarist for the Polecats, was in Orlando and he stopped in Rock and Roll Heaven and he was talking to Ray and he's telling him that, he was a big rockabilly fan and he was like, I have a little label in Europe that I put out stuff. And he goes, I want to do this compilation of American rockabilly music, called Stateside Rockabilly. And Ray's like, well, you got to put this Orlando band on there. They're the real deal. You got it. He goes, and so he gave Boz the Mission to Mars EP, and Boz contacted us, and he's like, "Yeah, I had the compilation almost done, but I got to put this on there, and I put a couple of your songs on there." So that Stateside Rockabilly CD, which was released in Europe and Japan, really helped get the name of the band out there a
Yeah,
lot. We
I
got
bet.
um, a lot of very positive response from that, and there were there were some offers, I guess, for us to tour Europe, but it never coincided with our other non or day jobs. So we were all
Right.
like,
Those.
can we make this happen and not
Yeah.
take a month off from work and still, it just logistically didn't. Unfortunately, we never took advantage of that, which that's one thing I wish we would have done. I really think, you know, I think it could have been really good to go to Europe, but there seems to be a much greater appreciation for roots music there than here.
I also imagine too, from an outsider looking in, especially outside the US, when you think of Orlando, Florida, they think of Disney World and that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yes.
Rockabilly music isn't the first type of music that springs to mind. So, did you ever get any weird looks like rockabilly from Orlando? Like, did that ever happen?
Yeah, I think it's probably. I mean, we were fortunate. Pretty much all reviews. When we would put out something, we would send it out to different magazines and for reviews and such, and they were very positive, except for one. This guy, this guy just the whole Disney thing. He just couldn't get over it. The whole review was based about us being from Orlando. And he's like, they've got the jackets on, they've got the hair, they've got the blue suede shoes. Is this real music or is it Disney Billy? I was like, what? Disney Billy?
Never
What?
heard of such a thing.
Yeah, so it's like that's the one instance where what you're saying, like we weren't taken seriously just because we were from Orlando.
Yeah, that's
That's
a shame.
yeah, it didn't really happen much, just that one.
Yeah,
Thankfully, that one time.
right. Yeah, and I've heard that from a lot of other guests where they felt also too because Florida, especially depending on where you are in Florida, can be so isolated from the
Yeah,
rest of the country that people may not have even been paying attention to what was going
true.
on there. So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. A lot of bands just kind of bypass. They can,
right.
but
Those that know, they know.
yeah, there's a lot of, there's there's a lot of especially in the 80s and 90s, there was live music was a big thing. A lot of really, really good bands, a lot of good venues, and it just seems like now it's unfortunately not a lot of venues and not that much live music comparatively,
Right. It definitely has changed quite a bit.
Yeah,
I don't know if COVID helped at all either. Uh, so, with
yeah,
places
that,
closing down as a result and that sort of thing, I think it changed things as
yeah, for
far
sure.
as live music goes.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to share a few more pictures if I could
Okay.
from some of the live period of Rocket 88.
Yeah.
Just looking at some of these pictures, again, visually, we were talking about this. You can almost hear the music through these photos. So it's just great pictures. Who was taking a lot of these?
Yeah, we were fortunate to have some really good photographers. Katie Ball was a photographer who she took a lot of these. Melissa Taylor, she took some of the Jim Leatherman, of course. Jim Leatherman, the legendary Orlando photographer. Um,
I noticed Jim's name too in the Mission to Mars 7
yeah,
inch.
yeah, he took some of the live shots on that EP layout. Yeah,
I'm gonna bring up
yeah.
another batch of pictures here because there definitely is no shortage when it comes to photos of the band. And I'm gonna bring up one more here, and I just love that because the thing is, there's a lot of people who will be checking out this episode, Mike, who never had the chance to see Rocket
Right,
8. They may not have even knew of Rocket 88. So
right.
I think
Yeah,
just
yeah,
giving people this visual of what the band looked like, and hopefully it's going to pique interest. So if you never heard Rocket 88, you should go on and check out their
yeah,
music. So
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a lot of good times, a lot of good memories for sure. It's
those gold pants and that picture at
yeah,
the bottom there, are those still in your closet, Mike?
they are. Yeah, they that was at the Heavy Rebel Weekender, which was in North Carolina, Winston-Salem, 2-day event with 30 some rockabilly roots bands. And yeah, that it was yeah, that was a great time. Those are actually the stitching on the pants spells the word sex. It's sex. I don't have to really zoom in, but
Uh,
yeah, haven't worn those in a while.
that is funny. Did you like playing the shows where there were a lot of bands on the bill? Was that something you enjoyed?
Yeah, yeah, I did. It was nice to do those events and like network with other bands and see and hear bands from other parts of the country, that are doing similar things. And yeah, for the most part, everyone was very supportive and appreciative. The thing about Heavy Rebel Weekender was, which I didn't know until we did it, if the crowd liked you, they would throw their empty PBR cans at you, which is
Is that good or bad?
yeah, that's what we were saying. I don't know if I actually like this.
Right.
So yeah, the second we did it a few times. The last time we did it, it got a little out of hand because people were I mean, at first it's kind of funny, but then after a while, people are drinking and then they're
Right.
throwing half full cans and
Oh
then
no.
full cans. And
Does that mean they really love you? Like, what does that
yeah, I
mean?
know. It's like, what's happening here? So, yeah, uh, not a good thing. Yeah.
I have never heard of such a thing before.
Oh, I mean, literally after, if they like the band, like I remember, after we finished and before we went on, the band before us, and there would literally be like, over your ankles deep in PBR cans across. I mean, this was a really big venue, and it would just be the whole stage would just be covered in PBR cans. They would have these shovels and brooms. They just sweep them out of this big giant pile, and it was wild. I
I
mean,
mean, I guess on one side it was cheap beer, so people weren't wasting
yeah,
a ton of money if they
they
were
did not. Yeah, they didn't care. The people that were there
no.
did not care. It was the thing, which yeah, but
That's wild.
yeah, it when someone threw a full can and it hit Mark's guitar, he has the Gretsch Falcon, the White Falcon, and I was like, hey, ooh, yeah, no, that didn't
I can
go over too
imagine.
well.
Yeah. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
that that
yeah,
would
it's
that would
like,
make somebody pretty
yeah,
angry.
that's enough. That's enough. But I did like playing those events because it was we did a weekender show in Indianapolis that was really really good. That was in 1997. Um, there was bands from England there, the Big Six and Ronnie Dawson and it was great to see these bands. You read about them, and they didn't really tour the states that much, but
Right.
it was a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah. Those are
Yeah,
the kind of shows you got to go to because who knows if they're going to return, you know.
exactly. Yeah.
So, uh,
Yeah.
I know we were talking about the beer cans being thrown and what have you, but thinking about both with Love Gods and Rocket 88, were there ever any injuries that you or other members of the band encountered on one of the many shows that you played?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I always kind of push it, always push it to push the envelope to the end. Uh, we were playing at the Windows on the World, the top of the World Trade Center, Rocket 88, and in front of the stage there was a railing. It was they did bands there occasionally, not not on a regular basis, but um, there was a railing in front of the stage, and so we're playing, and I'm climbing on the railing, swinging on the railing, kind of flipping them around, going back and forth on the railing, and I flipped completely over and just landed on my back on the floor. And yeah, I just laid there for a little bit because I couldn't move. It was
Did you break anything?
kind of scary. No, but it really hurt. I mean, it really hurt. And we were about, I don't know, maybe three-quarters of the way through the set. So you know, they kept playing and, extending solos until I
Right.
was able to kind of crawl back up there and I was able to get myself up. And yeah, that was so painful. That's one of the times where I was like, oh, yeah, I
And you
overdid it there.
and you finished the show?
I did. We only had a couple more songs, but it really hurt. I
I
mean,
can only
as soon as
imagine.
we were done, I'm icing it. It was, but another thing about that show was I remember loading in, we're at the top of the World Trade Center and I'm thinking to myself, man, what if there's a fire? How are we going to get out of here? I was like, this is, you know, you're up there, what's going to happen? But, and then, what happened on 9/11 was just, you think about all those people, they're just trying to get out. It's just, yeah, it's just surreal. All that happened. The building is no longer there. It's
Right.
just, yeah, wow. But I mean, I've had other times where I've fallen. I was at the back booth in Orlando and I jumped up on the bar and I'm running down the bar and I slipped on someone's drink. I fell off the bar and hurt my knee and I had this big giant knot on my knee for months after that. And I was like, I went to see orthopedic specialists and I was like, yeah, there's nothing they could do. But yeah, those are the only two times where I really, really,
I mean, those are two pretty pretty big ones.
yeah, I've been lucky. There's been other times where I've dove out into the crowd or, jumped on the bar and it's just thankfully it didn't fall off, crazy
Right.
stuff that in the moment you don't think about it, but I guess now that I'm a little older, I don't really don't really go quite that
Yeah.
far anymore.
I
Yeah.
imagine you do a lot more thinking about it now than maybe back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure.
And Rocket 88 is still playing shows, right? Still pretty active,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah. We've done well, nothing through when COVID. And then in 2023, WMNF radio station in Tampa, um, they do this event. It's called the Tropical Heat Wave. It's in Ybor City, and I think they've been doing it for 36 years, 38 years. Um, they decided to do it again and to start it back up again and ask us if we'd like to do it. And so these are some photos from that show. This is the original Rocket 88 lineup, which Steve Plotnick is on drums, and the last time he played drums with Rocket 88 was 2007. So that was, this is the original lineup, and this was, uh, let's see, it was 2023. So it was 31 years from when we first started.
Wow.
And yeah. And so the Heat Wave is a great event. It's such an eclectic mix of bands, and they have three stages and stuff. So we did some shows. We did a couple shows. We did, two or three shows a year, and then they asked us to do it again this year. So we just played the Heat Wave in May in at the Cuban Club in Ybor City. So,
Have you
but I hope
guys
that
have you recorded any new songs to play at some of these more recent gigs or still playing more
no,
classics?
yeah, we're just doing. It's a 1 hour set, so I mean we have quite a catalog of stuff to pick from. So we just kind of strip it, narrow it down to the most popular songs, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, no, that makes sense. Has the audience changed at all over the years?
Yeah, yeah, it has. I mean, we have a lot of fans that came to see the band in the 90s, still come to see the band, which is so cool. And then we have a lot of WMNF, especially in Tampa. When we play in Tampa, it's the music scene just seems to be a little more vibrant there, and they really promote music on their broadcast, local music and Florida music. And so um, we do events. We do those events, which are big events that we get new people that haven't seen the band before, and they come, and then they start coming out the new shows. So yeah, it is. It's a nice mix of old and new, but
Yeah.
a lot of new. Yeah, it's which is good for
See a lot of
sure.
people come out who are really passionate about rockabilly, who have the whole get up, the hair, all that. Is that
Yeah,
common at
yeah, they
shows?
still a lot of that. Mainly at the Rockabilly Ruckus, which is another event that they put on at Skipper's Smokehouse, and I think last year or year before that was the last year of the Ruckus, but it's like 18 years they did it, and we played it a lot. And um, yeah, that whole thing is just everyone looks like, straight off the set of Grease, but
Right.
which is cool.
Yeah.
They have a car show and pin up girls and stuff. It's another a really great event, just really cool.
Do you have a favorite 50s car?
Yeah, for 25 years I had a 1960 Thunderbird, which looks it's almost identical to the 59 Thunderbird, but yeah, I had that car for 25 years. I guess that's my favorite, the T-Bird. Yeah.
It's a classic.
Yeah. I mean, I could say a Rocket 88, the
Right.
Oldsmobile Rocket 88. You would think that would be my favorite, but it's actually Thunderbird.
Is that where the name originated from? Was from the car?
Yeah, yeah, the car. Rocket 88 is also the song by Jackie Brinson is arguably the very first rock and roll song
Yeah.
ever recorded. So, yeah. But that's where it came from.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think I also have a photo too that I wanted to share of just the current lineup as well. And
Yeah.
is this the most current as far as still playing out at some of the different shows the band is scheduled for?
Yeah, yeah, that's Mark, Chuck, and Corey Brady's the drummer. He's played with us for mm, I think it's like 6 years or so. 7 years. Um, so yeah, he's. I should also mention that there's been times where Chuck uh, was out of working. He's a full-time musician, so he was out of state doing things, or Mark was doing other projects, or over the years. So we've had other people play with us as well. So I got to mention Craig Roy on the bass. He plays with the Hindu Cowboys and the Oak Hill Drifters, and Tom Pierce, drummer, Oak Hill Drifters. He's played with us for several years, and Dale Clark, guitarist, played with us when Mark wasn't available, and um, so there's been other people over the years that's kept it going, but there's always throughout all that there's always at least one or two of us that original members that still are still with the band. But right now, yeah, it's the original lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's another band that members are shared with. I don't know if they still play shows or not. Blue Flame Combo.
yeah, that was another band that Chuck did. I no, they're not together anymore. But
Okay.
yeah, I think Steve was in that with Chuck.
Yeah. Did you guys
Uh,
play shows together as Rocket 88 too?
no, no, that was after Rocket 88.
Okay.
Took a break. Chuck also has Midnight Ramblers with Rob Mola. That's another
Yeah.
blues band. Um, that he does with Terry Mooney and Steve. Um, yeah, Chuck's got a lot of projects going on because he's a full-time musician. That's what he does. So um, I still have my illustrator career that I've had for 30 years. So uh, it's not a full-time, music's not full-time for me. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. You got your hands in, you've had them in both sides of that creativity for a long time. And there was another band that you also did too, another, which I love the name of this band,
Yeah,
Knockdown Drag Out.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
how did that band form?
Yeah, that was that was like 2010. Again, Chuck was traveling a lot. He was doing other musical projects, and Mark was doing another musical project, his band Luxurious Python, and so he wanted to take a break from Rocket 88, and I wanted to keep playing because I liked playing out, and so I took some of the guys that were playing with Rocket 88, Craig Roy on upright bass and Tom Pierce on the drums and Matt Burke on the piano and Dell Clark on guitar. Dell was in a band called the Rhythmatics, and so we put together this kind of side project called Knockdown Dragout that we played, off and on for geez, like almost 7 years. Whenever Rocket 88 was kind of in a downtime, so very similar music as Rocket 88. I mean, we did a lot of Rocket 88 songs um, and then other covers, different covers. But yeah,
Did you ever record?
no, we never did. We always talked about it a lot, but it just seemed to like it just never materialized.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. Matt played with us for a while, and then he moved away, and so we just played as a four piece. But we did a lot of shows in the Daytona, DeLand area because Dell is from DeLand, and he had a lot of contacts in that area, and so we did a lot of shows at Cafe Da Vinci and Iron Horse Saloon in Daytona and some places like that. But
I know early on you had mentioned when you moved to DeLand from going to the Art Institute in Fort Lauderdale, there was nothing going on there. So fast forward all these years later, was there
yeah,
now stuff going on in DeLand?
yeah, there is. It's like there's bars and nightclubs. I mean, Cafe Da Vinci is a really cool venue to see a band. It's I don't know if you've been there, but
I have not.
yeah, it's a really cool place. It's an outdoor stage, nice stage. It's a huge patio with lighting and trees that overhang and nice courtyard.
Yeah.
Um, it's a really good venue. But to kind of go full circle is Knockdown Dragout actually played at Cafe Da Vinci. We opened for the Dead Kennedys, which was like
Wow.
kind of
That
going
is
all the way
that
back to the
that
very
is full
beginning.
circle. Like,
Yeah. So that was cool. It was unfortunately Jello wasn't is no longer in the band. I don't know what
yeah,
they have a I guess they had a falling out, but the other guys, the original members were
sure.
in. So that was a thrill. That
Oh, I
was
bet.
yeah. So
Yeah, I love the aesthetic too of the artwork. It feels like in many ways a bit of a continuation from what you were doing with Rocket 88 artwork.
sure.
Maybe not as B-movie style, but the
Yeah.
pinup, the classic hot rod, that sort of thing. How
Yeah.
did you decide on just how you wanted to stylize some of these posters?
Um, I think it depends. Sometimes I think about who we're playing with. So like if you look at like the Oak Hill Drifters or Giddy Up Go. Those were like country western, country kind of um, based bands. So I did the Western Girls to kind of, get that vibe, and then
Right.
the with the country slashers, I thought it would be funny to have the knockdown drag out and the country slashers fight thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of really depended on who we were playing with or the venue, or just whatever kind of struck me at the time. So yeah,
Very neat. I'd be intrigued just from the poster art. Like, what does this sound like? What am I going to see at a show like
yeah,
this?
good. That's good. That's good. Then, well, I've accomplished what I was doing.
No, I really love the aesthetic of all the artwork that we've been looking at and just being able to see all that work that you've done as far as the bands go. Did you ever do other artwork for other bands outside of what you were doing for your own bands?
Yeah, I've done posters for people, logos. Um, there was a band in Michigan, the Swinging Demons. I did their logo and their CD designs and stuff. Yeah, there's been some bands in Orlando I've done some stuff for. Yeah, I have done some. Yeah, but sometimes a venue would ask me to do a poster for something. I would do it,
Yeah,
but it's I guess primarily been for what my projects or Space Fish. In the beginning there, doing all those wacky flyers for those shows. So yeah.
I mean, as far as how much longer do you have with your musical journey, is there anything else you haven't tapped into yet that you think you might?
Um, at this point, probably not. I mean, 38 years is that's a long time. Uh,
It is.
yeah, no, I really just enjoy I love Rocket 88. I love the fact that, it's the music just comes from here. It's just and I think, people have asked me over the years, like especially the last 5, 10 years, it's like, why don't you just start something else? If you can't, if say someone's doing something else that's in Rocket 88 or is not available, why don't you just do something else? Start over, do another band, something different. And like, I don't know that I really want to start all over again doing all. I mean, at least, I mean, for whatever it is, it's been around since, for 33 years. Rocket 88 has been around. So I mean, it still has some notoriety, I suppose. I mean, maybe not what it once was in the 90s, but to start all over from the very beginning,
Yeah,
bottom, and try to build that up again, I don't know that I have it in me
sure.
throughout this time. I really
No,
don't.
I can totally understand where you're coming from because it is, to your point, you're starting from scratch in many ways, and
Yeah,
it's a lot to
yeah,
wrap your head around, I feel
yeah,
like. So,
yeah. Just getting people to come out to a show,
right,
even to even to a Rocket 88 show, I was like, yeah, it's like, eh. But yeah, that's why I think starting another band with a different name it would be a lot. I really don't. I look at the music industry now, and bands that should have made it really big that never really made it, and yet bands that are touring, and it's like, how do they make a living? How are they able to sustain this? Um, with the expenses and travel and all that. It's unless there's like this layer of musicians, national touring acts that are very successful or paid well or whatever. And then there's this whole other just level that's just barely getting by, barely
right,
making it. It's and I admire them for still doing it, going out. It's tough. It really
sure.
is. Music industry's changed so much over the years. It's just And I sound like I'm old and jaded, but it's true. It really
Yeah.
helps. It
No,
really,
it's just a fact. It has.
yeah,
It
yeah,
has. And even the way people get their music now and have for
absolutely.
a little bit, it's changed quite a
Yeah,
bit. So, but
yeah.
it's nice when you can find music from a band like Rocket 88 or the Love Gods in Leisure Suits. And as far as just being able to find some of the music on some of the streaming platforms, how has that been? Do you feel like there's enough music from both bands available for people to find if they wanted to?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at least Rocket 88's on iTunes and Spotify and Amazon Music and CD Baby and all those. Um, I think there's some Love God stuff online. I think maybe Bandcamp or something.
There is a, yeah, there is
Yeah,
a Bandcamp.
I think Tom Arline put some stuff on there. I'm not sure what all's on there. I eventually I started um, going through just stacks of videotapes from live shows over the years for Love Gods and Rocket 88. I'm trying to digitize some of that stuff to um, create a YouTube channel so that people can see some of these shows and not just, hear about it or
Right.
talk about it. So um, I've
It's
done a
great though
few.
that you have so much of these archives that you've kept because not everybody has been so uh
Anal.
l- well, uh, well, I think people lose things over the course of time too when it comes to physical
True.
copies of things. And it's nice you've kept on to so much of your archive from your work.
Well, yeah, thanks. I just it's I don't know. It was memorable times for me and good times, and I thought, I better hang on to this. Yeah, someday I'll look back and say, this was, I remember that show, or yeah, that was cool, or So yeah, I try to keep all that, a lot of stuff, but getting it. This was a real doing this podcast with you was a kind of like a a real impetus for me to actually organize some of it because I had, just lots of files and lots of stuff. So I'm actually a little more organized now than I was before.
There
So
you go.
thank you for that. So.
There you go. Yeah, I was amazed by how much you had. And but when you look at all these things, and again, it goes back to what you said way earlier, is that visual. People can listen with their eyes,
Yeah,
and you see these images, and they invoke memories for
yeah,
people, I think.
yeah,
Those that were there at some of those shows
mm,
who've have been there from the very beginning, or perhaps those that came a little bit later to discover Rocket 88. And I just feel like when you finally get a chance to have the YouTube channel, it's going to bring
yeah,
a lot of joy to people who
yeah,
think fondly about those times.
yeah. Well, I hope so. That's my goal. It's slowly but surely I'll get there. I've digitized some things, and it's interesting to see some shows like, wow, I really thought this was a way better show than what I'm seeing now.
Right.
Or this one is like, oh, this one was really great, but I didn't think it was that good at the time. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
Was
it's
there one in particular that you're looking back on that maybe at the time you were like, I don't know about that one, but now you think more fondly about it?
yeah, there's a show. I haven't gone through a whole lot of them, but there's one we did it at the social. It was at Sapphire at the time, and that it was just we had a guy, Steve Skinner, playing sax with us at that time. This is right after Rock Around came out, and there's a lot of people dancing down front, right in front of the stage, and it was just like the sound is really good. It was like, wow, this is 1995, and I'm like, this really holds up. I mean, this was, the band was so tight because we were playing so much, and it's It's like, this was really pretty good, compare, some of the other stuff is like, ooh, that was not.
I feel like everybody has some of those moments,
Yeah.
you know? So,
But yeah, pleasantly surprised. It's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's going to be the fun thing, I feel like, too. And I know I mean, those things are labors of love. They take
Yeah.
time to put together but to just uncover some of those things and go back and check them out. I imagine a lot of that stuff you probably haven't even seen since it was originally
Oh,
done.
yeah. Yeah. Some of it 30 years or
And you
more.
see this other version of yourself too from going back all
Yeah. It
these
was,
years.
yeah, that was, my wife was like, came in when I was going through some of this stuff and she's like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? And I'm like, man, I'm looking at these photos and videos of, you know, when I was 25 and I look so old now. She's like, you're you're crazy. You're torturing yourself. What are you doing?
You
What are you
are.
talking about?
You got great hair, Mike. People would kill for your hair.
Well, I try to take care of myself. I really do, but yeah, it is like whew, going back though, it's like, wow, this is a lot of years, a lot of good times for sure.
And I think that's what's most important. And just by our conversation and looking at a lot of the photos and what have you, I feel like one thing is safe to say. I think overall it appeared that you had a lot of fun with what you
Yep.
were doing. You enjoyed it. You were very passionate about it.
Yep.
And it was a really fun experience, I would imagine. You know, always highs and lows to anything, right? But
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
overall, especially that photo of you at Jerry Lee Lewis, that
Yeah,
tells the
yeah,
story right there. You can't get a bigger smile than that, Mike.
that's true. Yeah, yeah, definitely all the lows were made, the highs make up for it way
Yeah.
more, it's just, but I think, bottom line for me, I think at least people, I think it comes across. I just love to do it. I love to be on stage. I love to perform. I love to see what kind of reaction I can get, in the last, 10 years or so. I don't think about, trying to be signed to a label or whatever. I just enjoy it, be in the moment and try to savor it. I try to, but I think it comes across. I think
Yeah.
hopefully people see that, it does come from here. I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not or something I'm not or put on an act. It's just, I love doing it. So yeah.
I hope you can go for as long as you want to, Mike.
Thanks.
As long as you want to, as long as you're able to.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
it's been fantastic just getting a chance to sit down with you. And
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I hopefully someone will enjoy hearing and seeing this stuff. Hopefully, I was there for a lot of the Orlando music history, for at least the last 30, almost 40 years. So,
you
um,
were. And who knew? I mean, I didn't know you had origins going back to the South Florida early
yeah,
period too. So you really got a chance to see two different scenes,
yeah,
which
absolutely.
is plus all, I mean, you were around other scenes too, like Tampa and what have you, but being able to just see some of those bands play at some of those venues that are long gone, you
Yeah,
have those memories that many others don't have.
true. Yeah, yeah. I'm very fortunate, very fortunate. So, yeah,
Well,
and I appreciate you asking me to be on the show. Really do.
the real honor. And as we get ready to close things out, I would love to give you the last word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share to fan supporters alike? The floor is yours to take us home.
Ah, well, again, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you and tell my whole story. Hopefully, it's not the end. Still going. Hopefully. But I just really would like to thank all the people over the years that helped both bands and family, friends, My son, it's Father's Day. I got to think West. But yeah, all the people that came out to see the band, supported the bands, bought our merch. As long as I'm very appreciative of that, and without all that, we could have never done it. Could have never done it. So.